Hello students. Now I think prelims examination 2024 is around 4 months away, and most of the students have certain queries, and in that context now people say, sir, we are studying about the static subjects and we are reading upon these subjects. We are doing a number of test series, we are solving PYQs. So I somewhere believe I am confident with static part and I can manage the static part. But sir, I am really confused about what should I do in the aspects of current affairs. And I think this is an year-on-year question which keeps repeating, and which I see that students are always boggling upon the sources for current affairs and what should be the way that they should do for current affairs. Because what we generally observe is there are few questions that are put by number of students and few observations they make with respect to the students. One question that commonly is asked by the students is, sir, we read so many current affairs but nothing is directly asked in the examination. The second question which I commonly see, sir, whatever current affairs I am reading from different sources, I am unable to recollect. And not only with respect to that I am unable to recollect, but in case if something is directly asked in the exam and I am unable to mark it right. The third question that they ask, sir, I read certain magazines for current affairs and I also observe that it is taking a lot of time for me to cover that magazine, and in the name of covering this current affairs I think my static is somewhere missing up. Now when you look at the answers for all of these questions, that you will have to understand that when you try to trace what is the logic behind putting current affairs or what is the logic behind emphasizing upon current affairs either by the UPSC or by the aspirant, is we will have to be aware about what is the nature of the development upon a particular issue is happening over a period of time. And I somewhere believe that when you look at current affairs, you actually have to understand that any issue is not something which is emerging now. Any issue has a particular history, and that particular history of an issue has been going on for quite a few time or quite number of years. And now what we see is some advancement in that particular issue happens. For example, if you look at Israel-Palestine, or for example you look at Russia-Ukraine, or for example we look at UNSC memberships, or for example if you look at the aspects of doctrine of essential religious practices in the context of polity. So what we observe is, we see that there is a build-up of a particular issue that happens over a period of time. Now when you look at this, and when a particular student tries to bank upon a particular magazine, what happens is, you generally see that these magazines have overload of content, because in the name of covering pin to pin about the issue, in the name about looking at that I should cover everything related to that issue, related to every subject, what we generally observe is the size of the magazine increases. And not only the size of the magazine increases, but we also see the amount of the content that has to be remembered increases a lot. Now in the name of this, it is going to take a lot of time for you to remember. It is going to take a lot of time for you to recollect. It is going to take a lot of time for you to read on its first go. And it is going to definitely take a lot of efforts for you to apply whatever you have learned in the exam. Because what happens is, we see that all of this content written in the format of paragraphs and all of this content that is put in the form of the pages or the bulky material, it becomes really difficult for you to apply in examination for multiple reasons. When you try to understand what are these different reasons that are existing for its tough applications, one is majorly with respect to the nature you read with respect to the current affairs, and the nature of the questioning in the exam is quite different. Because when you look at the magazine that you read with respect to current affairs, what you observe is, you see that there is an elaborate article upon a particular issue is written. And it is not only the elaborate article about a particular issue is written, you see that there are number of facts which are loaded in this context. So when you look at the frame of mind when it comes to reading a magazine on current affairs, you have a different set of mind. And there when you observe that different set of mind, it is all paragraph approach, it is all subject approach, it is all content oriented approach, it is all fact based approach. Now here when it comes to the examination perspective, it is just merely an objective question where you are supposed to answer, which will have either 3 statements, which will either have 4 statements, or which will either have multiple statements to be chosen. And considering the changing option pattern of UPSC now, it's really getting difficult for the student to identify the correct option in these. So when we see a kind of mismatch that is existing between the way you prepare and the way that you apply in the examination, you see that most of you falter to answer these current affairs questions. Now for example, if you look at 2023 question paper, there was a question on Abraham Accords, or there was a question with respect to Ukraine borders, or there was a question with respect to 15th Finance Commission and the respective criteria. So in this context, or for example, if you look at the issues that were going on with respect to Africa, so when you look at these dimensions, what you observe is, you see, although you have studied all of this, you were not able to apply them in the exam hall for the reason that you didn't have a right way of looking at these, in the sense that you are reading a paragraph but you are trying to attempt an objective or MCQ question which has to be solved on the spot. Now to bridge this disconnect that is existing, what we have thought, or what is the better way of looking at current affairs is, why not look at these current affairs, or why not look at the content with respect to current affairs in a question answer format. And in that context, when we try to observe that question answer format, RC Reddy IAS Study Circle has decided to come upon with a test series on current affairs. And when we look at this test series on current affairs, what do we observe? We see that around 12 tests covering 12 months, and each test having 100 questions, that is 1200 questions indicating the most important current affairs of 12 months. Now here you might get a doubt, sir, are these 1200 questions enough for me to remember with respect to current affairs? You have to understand that any issue in current affairs, if it is happening for long period, you will not see much of the advancements happening over a period of time, that is especially in a span of 1 month. You don't see much of the issue changing. So in that context, what you have to understand is, an issue which has been covered in the March questioning need not be covered in the question where you look into with respect to June questions. So here what we are going to see, that this 1200 questions are going to have a comprehensive coverage. Now how can you say comprehensive coverage, sir? The simplest answer to me that I look into is that these 1200 questions have a detailed explanation that is given, and it is not only the detailed explanation which is given on paper, but we also have an analysis class after every test. Now you might think that, sir, in this analysis class, don't you think you will explain the same explanations that are given in the PDF or that are given in the answer sheet? But you will have to understand that we are not calling it as explanation sessions, we are calling it as analysis sessions, for the reason that any static or any current affairs that is existing, you see that it has a background or it has an extrapolation with respect to the static that you are studying. That dimension of current affairs has to be looked into. The second dimension that we see in the context of analysis is, we will have to look at the right orientation of what is the interconnection or what is the interlinkage that is existing between different issues. So that also can be seen with respect to the analysis. So here, if you ask me, sir, what do you think or what do you pitch for the students with respect to current affairs preparation is, I would say that 1, prioritize question answer format of solving when it comes to current affairs. Because when we look at question answer format, the frame of mind is set for your prelims examination, because in prelims examination we are definitely not going to write an essay, but we are going to choose the option among the given statements, whether it is right, whether it is incorrect, whether it is correct, whatever is the question that is asked respectively. So in that context, RC Reddy IAS Study Circle has planned to come up with this 12 tests, considering that to train the mind of an aspirant according to the question answer format. And these question answers which are given as part of the test series, which are 1200 in number, you would see that these questions will also have multiple statements per se, and I would say you would see that roughly around 800 to 900 very important current affairs and issues will be definitely and can be definitely covered among these 1200 questions. So that is one dimension that I would like to consider. The second dimension or the second way of preparation is, now whenever you solve these questions and whenever you listen to the analysis class and whenever you read the explanation session or whenever you read the explanation paper, what I personally would suggest is have a short note. Have a short note in the sense, it is not the short notes of everything that you are reading, it is not the short notes of everything that you have listened as part of analysis class. What I would tell you is, have a short notes with respect to the facts that are difficult to be remembered. Now on an average, if you look at out of those 100 questions, maybe the fact base or the fact check that you are supposed to look into and that you are supposed to constantly memorize would hardly be roughly 3 to 4 pages or 5 pages. So on an average, when you observe for 12 tests, you would have 4 to 5 pages of facts that has to be extracted and that has to be specifically written. Now on an average, you would have 50 to 60 page notes which will be there with you, which can give you the base for the facts that have to be remembered, that have to be revised, that have to be recollected, that have to be applied in the examination, such that you will be able to identify the wrong statement, and not only that, you will also be able to arrive at the correct statement. As I often keep telling, that prelims is not a game of selection, it's a game of elimination, where we don't select a candidate, we eliminate a candidate. It is not only with respect to candidate, we also eliminate the option to arrive at the correct option, but we don't select this correct option. So in this context, what happens is, so when you look at this way of preparing for current affairs, what happens is, 1, it is setting the frame of mind. 2, it is giving you a detailed analysis and static based or the current affairs based or extrapolated static. The third thing that is doing is it is giving you the necessary fact base. And the fourth thing is definitely the question papers and the way that you look at it would indicate high priority areas. So what you have to understand is, this examination does not demand you knowing everything, but you, whatever you know, should be known better. And in this context, you will be able to prioritize the high priority areas in the context of current affairs. And you will also have an access to the revision notes that is going to be present, that you are going to prepare, where a necessary guidance will be given as part of the analysis class that you would see. So when I have all of this, at the end of the day, you would see that previously for a student who was only dependent upon a magazine, that individual had something to revise more than around, say, 100 pages and 12 months, that is roughly around 1200 pages if a short note is also made. On an average, you would see the individual would be having pages roughly more than 500, 600. But whereas when you look at this way approach, of this way of remembering and this way of analyzing and this way of attempting and this way of approaching current affairs, you would see that this would end up with analysis on static, analysis on current affairs, high priority areas, the framework and the question answer format, as well as you also see that you would have this short notes for which is easy to revise. Maybe considering the exam is on May 26th, if you are able to revise these notes quite well, maybe from May 19th onwards till your May 23rd, May 24th, I think that is ready to go. So I somewhere believe this would be a right mix of practice and this would be a right mix of approach when it comes to current affairs for higher impact, for higher outcome, because you have to understand that this exam is all about reading less and practicing more, reading less and analyzing more, reading less and applying more and reading less, and getting more and achieving more, especially with respect to the outcome of the marks that you are supposed to arrive at. Thank you.